Hey everybody, today we are going to do another slides drawing project. Today, since it is only a few days away from Halloween, I thought it would be fun to draw a jack-o'-lantern. So let's do that. The first thing that we'll want to do is open up a new slides project. So the easiest way to do that, this is actually new, if you go to where you would type a website and you just type the word slides and then dot and then the word new, slides.new, push enter. It will open up automatically a brand new slides project that you can start from scratch. So from here, all you'd have to do is come up to the top, click layout, and make it blank. And after you have created your project, turn the layout blank, you'll be ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is to draw our pumpkin. So most people would want to do something simple like just drawing a big circle, but pumpkins don't look that way most of the time. Pumpkins are bumpy and they have more shapes. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a set of shapes. So this will be a little bit complicated, but if you follow along, feel free to stop the video if you need a little more time. But we're going to use a set of shapes and then group them together to make our pumpkin. So the first thing that we're going to do is come up here to the shape drawing tool and hover over shapes and then go to the oval tool, which is the second row, the first column. So the first thing in the second row, you're going to click on that, and then just over here to the left, and you can kind of however you want to end up doing this. You want to take your mouse and just drag and draw an oval that looks kind of like mine. Now you don't want it to be too big. Don't take up your whole canvas, your whole paper size. Just a little one like that. Because we are going to actually use this and copy it a bunch of times to make what our final pumpkin is going to look like. So after you've drawn your pumpkin, we want to change the color so it looks the right color. So for most of us that would be orange. So we're going to click on the shape, and now we're going to go up to the paint bucket tool, the fill color paint bucket tool, and click on that, and we are going to use a gradient. So the default here is solid, and I know I talk a lot about gradients. Whenever I do drawing and design, I always do gradients. So right here we're going to click gradient. And then I'm going to use this radial orange gradient that's already in right here. You could also use like this one down here or this one up here if you want a lighter one. But I like the dark orange because that looks more like a pumpkin. And the reason I want to use radial is since a pumpkin is round, light hits it and it goes around it. So we'll click this. Now while you're So now you'll have the first part of your pumpkin almost ready. The next thing that we want to do is we want to remove the outline. So shapes, when you first draw them, have a gray outline. We want to turn that outline transparent. So click on that shape again and then come up to the border color tool up here. And then the very top where it says transparent and there's a little drop with a line through it, you're going to click on that. And so you might not even be able to tell, but now there's no border around that shape. Okay? So step 2, draw an oval, color it orange with a gradient, and then remove the border from around the shape. If you need a few minutes to catch up with that, go ahead and pause the video, and then I'll show you the next step as soon as you guys are ready. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to duplicate this shape to make it look like we have a pumpkin that's round and bumpy and looks more like a real pumpkin than just a big fat circle. And we're going to do that by duplicating this same shape a few times. So you're going to click on this oval, and then on your keyboard you're going to do a shortcut for duplicate. You're going to hold the control button and you're going to push the D key on the keyboard, and you'll see that it'll just pop up a brand new copy of that same shape. So what you want to do is just kind of drag it over the side, not so it's all the way over here, but so they kind of overlap a little bit. So I have two shapes right here, and I want to do that again. I want to do that one more time. So I'm going to click this center oval, Control D, and move that over here, kind of so it looks the same. Now, that's going to be like what your pumpkin looks like. I'm going to click all of mine and move it over here to the center. But that looks more like a pumpkin than like just a big circle. But there's one more thing that we need to do here to kind of complete the body of our pumpkin shape, and that is to move this center oval to the top. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your mouse and you're going to click that center oval, so you have the blue highlight here, and you want to move up a layer that center oval. So I'm going to push the control button and the up key. So now that center oval is on the top, and it looks like the different parts of the pumpkin aren't overlapping in a weird way. It looks more like a real pumpkin might look. So what you need to have done by this point, have 3 ovals overlaid with each other, and then have that center oval be sitting on top of the other 2, so it looks like the parts of a pumpkin, how they would more naturally come together. If you need some time with that, again, feel free to pause the video, catch up, and then we will move on to the next step when you guys are ready. So the next step is to add a stem to our pumpkin. Again, we can use just about any shape for this. We're going to go up here to the shape tools, and I kind of think that, like, you could use a rectangle on this, but personally I think the one that makes this look better is this one that's down here at the bottom, and these are called flowchart tools. I've never made flowcharts with these, but that would be cool if you did. But there's this one over here to the right that says flowchart manual operation. It's just not whatever that means. But I think that looks like a stem, so I just take that and I draw it up at the top because it gives you kind of that stem kind of shape. So I just draw one up here, and then just like we did with the pumpkin itself, we want to change the color. I do gradient, this dark green radial gradient, like that. Okay. Now you might notice that this is a little bit strange because that stem is kind of on the outside of the pumpkin. We want it to go in the underneath the pumpkin. So we're gonna click that stem, and we're gonna use the control layer shortcut by pushing control and the down arrow to move it below that center layer. So now your pumpkin has a stem. I maybe want to make mine a little wider. There we go. So now your pumpkin will have a little stem to go from the top, just like any other pumpkin. So what you need to be doing now, drawing your stem, getting it, make sure it's the right color, and then layering it underneath so it's not sitting on top of those other shapes. If you need a minute, go ahead and pause the video, and then we will move on once you guys are ready. Alright, so we're almost done, but the first thing that we want to do before we start creating a design for our jack-o'-lantern is we want to group these shapes together, because what will happen now if you start trying to draw on top of this is you're going to move all these things apart from each other and they're going to get all screwed up. So what we want to do is to turn all these shapes into one shape. And the easiest way to do this is to click on the canvas background, and there won't be anything selected, but you want to select everything, and the select everything shortcut on your keyboard is the best way to do this. So if you push Control A, it will grab everything on your screen so you can group them together. So after you do Control A, you're going to come up here to the top where it says Arrange, and you want to find where it says Group right here. If you click Group, now this is one piece. All those shapes together make one piece, so I can click and drag this whole thing around and I don't have to worry about it falling apart. So take a couple of minutes here, make sure that you can group those shapes together before we start putting designs, drawing a face, all that kind of stuff on top of our jack-o'-lantern. Again, pause the video if you need to, and we'll move on as soon as you guys are ready. Alright, here comes pretty much the last step, and this is where you guys get to kind of have some fun with this, and that's drawing, basically like if you've ever done a real jack-o'-lantern, you cut the holes in the side and give it eyes and a mouth and nose or whatever, and in this case you can experiment and do whatever you want. If you don't necessarily want to do a face, you don't have to, it's totally your choice, but we're going to go back up to the shape tools, and a traditional thing with a jack-o'-lantern is to use triangles for the eyes. So, and here's a little tip: if you want the triangles to be the same, after you draw the first one, go ahead and color it the way you want. Now we know that with a pumpkin, the inside is yellow because it's lit up. If you wanted it to be black, you could totally do that, but again, I'm using gradients here. So color your eye shape, remove the border like we did before, but if you want to draw, like, what you can do is just duplicate this eye shape with Control D and then move this one right over here. So they're the same shape, they're the same size. Sometimes if you try to draw two different triangles, you'll get something that looks like this, and that's cool, and if you want to go for that, totally do it. But if you just want them to look exactly the same, click on it, Control D, boom. Now you got two eye shapes that are exactly the same. Same thing for your nose and your mouth. Maybe I want a nose that looks like this. So again, just go in here, do the color, remove the border. And then for the mouth, there's a couple of ways to do this. One is simple, the other can be a little bit tricky. We can just, again, use a shape tool. Now there aren't any that are great for a mouth, and if you want to get kind of experiment, like, this is a mouth shape, but it goes upside down, so if you do want to do this, you kind of have to flip it, okay? And then do the color. But what I like to do for the mouth is the polyline tool. And I know that I haven't talked about this yet, but if you come up here to the line and then drop down to this one that says polyline right here, you can actually draw any shape that you want. So a lot of times when people do a jack-o'-lantern, they like to have these kind of jagged teeth sticking around and being up and stuff like that. So every time you click, you'll add another line, and then at the very end, those lines come together, and when your first point meets your last point, it will create an enclosed shape. You can change the color of it, and you'll have a little jack-o'-lantern action, kind of like that. So the next thing would be to draw your face. If you are somebody who doesn't want to try, if you don't feel like you can do that polyline tool because it's hard, just use the shape drawing. There's nothing wrong with that. Experiment with it, have fun. If you want to kind of customize those shapes, try the polyline tool and create your own shapes, which is exactly what I did there at the bottom. But again, if you can't get that polyline because it's a little bit tricky, just use the shapes. That's totally fine. So take a little bit of time here, get your face on your jack-o'-lantern, and then we will come back and we will add the finishing touch to your jack-o'-lantern project next. Okay, so you got your hype jack-o'-lantern here, you're ready to go, but the problem is we have it on this kind of boring white background. So we want to change the background. You guys know how to do that, so this part's going to be really easy. We're just going to go up here and click background, and then we're going to go to where it says choose, and then one of your options, the very last one I think, yeah, right here, is search. So we're going to click search, and maybe I want my jack-o'-lantern to be in a forest. So I'm going to type forest here, and I'll get all these nice backgrounds to use. But I want to find like a spooky forest. Oh, this one looks kind of spooky right here. So I'm going to click this, and then just click select. And now my jack-o'-lantern is in a spooky forest. How cool is that? I can... Something else you can do if you're interested in this, maybe you don't want your jack-o'-lantern to be so big, or maybe you want it to be bigger, or maybe you want to change the size. Do a select all again, do Control A to select everything, and then use the little blue squares to kind of make it a little bit smaller if you want, but that's totally up to you. Once you get to this point, you can kind of experiment with it, make another one, make another slide, create more jack-o'-lantern, change the colors, do whatever you want. Now that you know how to draw stuff with shapes, it doesn't even have to be a jack-o'-lantern. You can draw whatever you want. But so that's your project. Take some time, finish that up, and I would really love to see what you guys do with those. So have fun, and if you guys have any questions, let me know. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.